What's up, buddies? What Jim? I'm joined by Jedi Master Martin, and we're going to be discussing The Mandalorian Season 2. We're going to be reviewing all the episodes and ranking them all as well. How are you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, Adam, for having me on your channel once again. It's been a hot minute since we covered the previous season. But
I think that was the last time you appeared on my channel. It was
yeah,
either
it's
that or
been
one
a
of our
while.
discussing Disney live streams, which we will come back to at some point. The next one we're doing is Mary Poppins. Looking forward to doing that one.
Yeah, very much excited to do that one. That's a personal favorite of mine.
But there were 8 chapters in this Mandalorian season, so before we go kind of rank them, we'll give our brief thoughts on the overall season, whether we liked it more than season 1 or not.
All right, now if you had asked me in 2020 when The Mandalorian season 2 first premiered on which one I enjoyed more, I would say season 2 in a heartbeat. I still think it's a really good season. There's a
I
lot
agree.
of great fan service, exciting action, and a really good story that intensified stakes, and it was a really good emotional payoff for the Mandalorian and the Grogu characters. But since then, and with other seasons, there's aspects that they retcon in this season, and like in season 3, for instance, that kind of hurts the quality of this season a little bit. At least for me, it's like, okay, you just made this big payoff at the end very pointless,
Mm.
and I'm kind of annoyed at that. But with all that said, I still think it's pretty good. Like, there's still a lot of good highs in this episode or in this season. I think where we are in 2024, I think season 1 is more cohesive, but season 2 still works on its own standards, even though they do some retcons in the future that really bug me, particularly bringing Grogu back.
Yeah,
But
in the
I
Book of
still,
Boba Fett.
yeah, I still like season 2.
Yeah, I think when I first watched it, I preferred season 2, but over time, I do prefer season 1 slightly. But this is still an excellent season in my opinion. But we'll start off with our ranking. So our least favorite chapter of this season.
All right, well, I knew when going through these episodes which one is my least favorite.
I
It
think
was
we're going
my
to have the
least
same
favorite.
least
It was
favorite.
my least favorite when it first aired, and it's
Same
still
here.
one of the worst
Yeah,
episodes of The Mandalorian in general. That is Chapter 10, The
the
Passenger.
passenger. Yeah,
Oh man! Now I think it tried doing like its own standalone story, like the Mandalorian, Grogu. They're on a little adventure and they get stranded, and then there's like these alien creatures they have to fight. That's all cool and all, but when your previous episodes stress the fact that, hey, we gotta find the Jedi Master to train Grogu, where he was Baby Yoda at the time. We didn't know it was the name was Grogu yet. It's like this just feels like a filler episode to stretch out an 8 episode season.
yeah,
And also, I this really bugged me when I watched it, but they do this joke of Baby Yoda
hmm
eating alien eggs when it was specified that there were babies in those eggs. So it's like, um, yeah, the implication surrounding that is actually kind of disturbing when you think about it. And so they played a joke off that, and I thought it was pretty off-putting.
yeah. I didn't even find the joke that funny to begin with.
Yeah, it's a like if it was like maybe if this episode was in season 1 and it was a standalone story, I think I would have liked it more. But
hmm
when you have more of a through line story in season 2, this one is like the outlier for my least favorite episode.
Yeah, it's my least favorite too. But it also had Dave Filoni in this episode. He made a cameo. appearance as one of the characters, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But it does have its moments in this chapter. I like the chasing sequence where they're running away from the spider creatures. I thought that scene was pretty cool, and you saw that frog lady running, like, becoming an actual frog, which I thought was pretty cool. And this chapter was also directed by Peyton Reed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got quite a few problems with this with this chapter, and also the fact that you can't understand what the frog lady is even saying as well. She has to use a droid to communicate with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's like with some of the other species of characters in Star Wars, they at least put subtitles on the screen because nobody understands what they're saying. But with the frog lady, it's like, okay, what's this gibberish and what is she saying?
Mm-hmm. And also the Razor Crest is damaged once again. It's been damaged loads, that vehicle.
Yeah, the Razor Crest has it rough, and we'll see what happens eventually to it later on in the season.
Mm-hmm. But I wonder if we both got a different number 7.
Number 7, I think I'm actually going to go with the follow-up, Chapter 11, The Heiress. Now, I actually do like all these episodes on up. I think these are all really good episodes. The one thing I really like in this episode is we get the live-action introduction of Bo-Katan. And I thought she was a great addition to the series. We see more of her in Season 3. And I thought she was a highlight in an otherwise not so great season, but we'll get to Season 3 when we get there. There's some good information revealed, like name drop Ahsoka Tano. That leads on to an even better episode. And I think there's some good tension in the episode when you realize, Moff Gideon's still out there going after the child. But for me, it's one of those cases where I like this episode, but I like the other ones more. There's nothing horrible about this episode or anything. It's just there's some other higher highs in this season that everything else, the ones that are lower, just has to be lower just for preference.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I've actually got a different number 7. I've got Chapter 14, the Tragedy, which is directed by Robert Rodriguez. I thought this chapter had really excellent action. I think it had some of the best action set pieces of the whole series. It was great to see Boba Fett in this chapter. And it was cool. I liked seeing him with Fennec Shand as well. I think she's a pretty cool character. So it was great seeing Boba Fett's starship, the Slave One, back in this. And yeah, I thought all that was done really well. But I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending of this episode. I thought it ended a bit unsatisfying, in my opinion. And I wasn't also a fan of how they treated Grogu in this chapter either. But I still thought it was a very good chapter. Just one of them had to be number 7 for me.
All right. You'll find out my thoughts in a little bit on that one. But number 6, this is where it gets tricky. All right, I'm going to go with Chapter 12, The Siege, directed by Carl Weathers. Again, another episode I really liked. It's fun going back to Navarro. I think that's been a cool planet explored in the Mandalorian series. You get to see Grogu team up not only with Carl Weathers as Grief Karga, but also the Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano. Those three have a fun dynamic. Pretty good little story in there where there's this final Imperial base on the planet that they got to take down. And that's when they unearth more of the deeper conspiracy of what's going on. You have this doctor that wants the blood of Grogu to start cloning. and the cloning aspect plays a bigger role in the third season. This one has some pretty good action in it. Again, much like the previous episode that I've mentioned, like I like some of the other episodes more, but there's still a lot of exciting stuff in it and some pretty good twists and turns along the way that I really like.
Well, that's also my number 6. Is the Siege. And yeah, I think it's a really enjoyable chapter. I think it's got really great action, and I really like the story of this chapter as well. And seeing Greek Karga once again. But I found one of the characters in it a bit annoying. I think the character's called Mithril. I found that character a bit annoying. I also wasn't the biggest fan of what Grogu was doing, going to that school. I found that part a bit filler, but other than that, I still thought it was a solid chapter of The Mandalorian.
All right, well, we're going into the top 5 now.
Top 5.
I think number 5, I'm going with chapter 15, The Believer. I think this is a really strong episode. Continues off after the action-packed episode that you had previously mentioned, the tragedy. I like the infiltration aspect of the storyline where they have to recruit the old Imperial character. I forget the character's name. The character Bill Burr plays.
Mm-hmm.
To get the information they need to eventually rescue Grogu. I think the main reason why I really enjoyed this episode is where you really see the conflict between the Mandalorian's code and his ethics, where he's trying to follow the code of the Mandalorians to a T, but when he's on this mission, the big thing that he does that kind of violates his morality a little bit is he has to literally take off his helmet in front of other people in order to get the information he needs. And that whole dynamic and how that went into play, especially into the finale, was a really good character moment for him that I really appreciated. Again, some great action. I like some of the characters that team up with the Mandalorian this episode, not just Bill Burr's character, but Cara Dune, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, all have memorable appearances in this episode. And I thought it was another really strong episode in this series.
Mm-hmm. We've got Jason in the chat. He's saying it's one of his favourite seasons of TV. Mandalorian season 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering why he wasn't in
it would have
season
been cool
3.
If he wasn't.
Because
where they left, cool if he was in season 3.
where they left him at the end of season 2, you think he would come back at some point and have more of a continued redemption arc for that character, but they've just not really done that. Maybe he'll be in the movie that's coming out, The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah, possibly. But it would be quite nice to see that character appear again. But my number 5 is one you mentioned a few minutes ago, and that's chapter 11, The Heiress, which is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. This is the episode when the Mandalorian meets Bo-Katan and some of the Mandalorians she's with. Yeah, I really like this episode. I really like the action, and I really like the story in it as well. Yeah, it's got everything I want in a Mandalorian episode. I also really like the cinematography in it as well. Yeah, I also think it's got a rather satisfying ending. It is quite a slow chapter. It does take a bit to get into, but once it gets going, yeah, I think it's really good stuff.
All right. This would have been higher if we were doing this in 2020, but it's now number 4. Number 4 is Chapter 16, The Rescue. Now, when this episode first came out, it was amazing to see the payoff of this season unfold, where you got the big rescue mission. You got you got this really amazing fight with Din Djarin and Moff Gideon, and how Din Djarin ends up taking ownership of the Darksaber, and how that comes into conflict with Bo-Katan. I wish there was more of a payoff with that in the 3rd season. They fumbled that badly, but we'll save that for season 3. But it led to an exciting tease for what I was hoping to see unfold. You have some pretty high stakes action, some really good cinematography, visual effects. What's crazy is this episode was directed by Peyton Reed. He directed the weakest episode of this season.
Yeah.
And yet he directed an episode that a lot of people believe is the best episode of The Mandalorian. And a lot of that attributing to the fact that even Luke Skywalker shows up in this episode. He's the mysterious Jedi that they were teasing the whole time. And so he shows up, and he's got his green lightsaber out, black cloak. You get to see Luke in his prime post-Return of the Jedi, slaying down all these trooper characters left and right. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. I mean, even the de-aging work, when I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. It looks like what Mark Hamill would have looked like in that era. So I got to give him props for that. The reason why it's lowered a little bit on my ranking is the fact that you have the emotional goodbye with Din Djarin and Grogu. And it was a very touching moment. He even takes his helmet off for him. And you really get to see the pain on Pedro Pascal's face as he's saying this emotional goodbye, moving on this new journey. I'm like, that was a great payoff. And then they retconned it in a spinoff of all things. And the show hadn't really justified fully in bringing Grogu back, despite Grogu having some fun moments in the 3rd season. But so I think that kind of hurts it a little bit. It's like, yeah, the awesome stuff is still there, but because Disney retconned it because they were greedy for more Grogu Baby Yoda merchandise, it's kind of tainted it a little bit, but still an awesome episode regardless, and it's still in the top 5. So,
well, I'll get to my number 4, which is the first chapter of the season, Chapter 9, The Marshal, which is directed by Jon Favreau. Yeah, I think it's got really great action, especially towards the end of the episode. I really like the character of Cobb Vanth as well. I hope he appears again in The Mandalorian. And I thought it had fantastic visuals, and I really like the set design as well. It looks like an Old West style sort of episode, which I thought was pretty cool. But I think the chapter, in my opinion, could have been a little bit shorter. I feel like maybe it goes on a little bit too long, which I think would have made the ending a little bit better. But yeah, I think overall, I think it's a really great chapter of The Mandalorian.
All right, so that's your number 4. That episode is my number 3.
Right.
Chapter 9, The Marshal. A great way to kick off season 2. I pretty much agree with almost everything he said. I love the Western aesthetic that it does have. I love the introduction of the character Cobb Vanth, played by Timothy Oliphant. Awesome addition to the series. I wish we get to see more of him at some point.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they kind of underutilized him in Book of Boba Fett. But I thought he was a great addition. I like some of the different layers and perspectives on this episode, particularly in the way Din Djarin speaks to the Tusken Raiders, because I think they were more villainized in previous Star Wars stuff, particularly the prequels. And here you get to see, once you get to know them, they're actually not that bad. And I actually like that perspective a little bit. This awesome. There's this awesome action sequence with this creature that's within an old Sarlacc pit. I love that action sequence to pieces. You can really feel Jon Favreau's knack for having fun visual sequences. And then you get the reveal of Boba Fett at the end, which that was a great reveal as a longtime Star Wars fan, saying, okay, he's back and he's alive. Because for years when we thought he was dead, I thought his death was lame. And so we get to see a comeback of Boba Fett of sorts. So, yeah, another really good episode. Strong kickoff to the second season.
Jason's mentioned about Gina Carano's character. Yeah, I thought she was a really good inclusion to the show.
Yeah, like the way that went out ticked me off, to be honest, because it was related to like politics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like, it is what it is. If they're able to get things settled, I'm open to her coming back, because I think there's more you could do with her character. But we'll just see what ends up happening.
Mm-hmm. But is it my number 3? Yes,
yeah.
My number 3, which is Chuck's 15, The Believer, which is directed by Rick Famu. Well, I can't pronounce his surname, but yeah, I think this episode is really great. I really like the team up of all different characters, and the fact that Mandalorian takes his helmet off towards the end. Yeah, I think it's all fantastic stuff. But I think that moment maybe could have been a little bit longer. I felt like maybe they brushed past that bit just a little bit, in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's a close to amazing episode for me. It's one that it definitely does set up for the really great final episode of the season.
All right. So my number 2, I'm going with Chapter 14, The Tragedy. Directed by Robert Rodriguez. That was your number 7, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me, because Robert Rodriguez directed this episode, and he was the showrunner on the Book of Boba Fett, which I thought was a massive disappointment. But regardless, I think this is an awesome episode. This is easily the most action-packed episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Robert Rodriguez, whether you love him or hate him, is a really cool action director. And it was cool seeing him play into that with Star Wars, with the higher production values. I think it continues to intensify the story with they're at this Jedi temple ruins, and Grogu's trying to find a connection to who can train him. And then you got Boba Fett showing up looking for his old Mandalorian armor that the Mandalorian has. And then Moff Gideon shows up, and then you get some crazy action left and right. You really get to see Boba Fett do some amazing stuff in this episode. I love the fact that they have a callback to an explosive charge that was used in Attack of the Clones. They brought it back in this season, and it was great for continuity's sake. I think I do have the confession to make. I was never real big on the Boba Fett hype train because the way he went out like a wimp in Return of the Jedi. I'm like, people hype this character up so much, and he hardly did anything in those original movies. But then you see him in this episode doing these awesome action set pieces, and I'm like, okay, I see the Boba Fett hype. And then I was disappointed with how they wasted him in his own show later on. But for now, this is the best I've seen Boba Fett in anything is in this episode. And I give it all the credit for that. This is easily one of the strongest episodes of The Mandalorian, especially on an action level.
Mm-hmm. Right, so I'll get to my number 2, which would be your favorite chapter, The Mandalorian, and that's chapter 13, the Jedi. That's my number 2, and this one's directed by Dave Filoni. This is the chapter that brings Ahsoka into live action, which I think is really cool. I love her interaction with Grogu. I also really like the fight that she does with, I can't remember what name is, but it's towards the end of the chapter. I really like that fight, and yeah, I really like that the fact they find out what Baby Yoda's real name is. You find out that in this chapter. I think it's a very important chapter to The Mandalorian. Yeah, it's still one of my favorites. I think it's an excellent episode.
And yep, you're correct. This is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian season 2. It was actually my favorite episode when it first aired, with the finale just not being a close second. But yeah, this is still my favorite episode of season 2, the Jedi. A lot of it is because of seeing Ahsoka Tano in live action.
Yeah, that is awesome.
She became one of my favorite characters when I was watching, going through some of the animated shows, like the Clone Wars. And so seeing her in live action played very well by Rosario Dawson was a treat to see unfold. They did the character justice. I think it was smart that Dave Filoni directed this episode because he was a big showrunner on the Clone Wars and even Star Wars Rebels, which Ahsoka had a supporting role in. So he understands the character more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so you really get to feel that, oh, this is a continuation still of her character at an older stage in life that past what we've seen her previously in. And I really love the action, the choreography, the cinematography, how the Mandalorian plays into the episode. Like you said, they reveal Baby Yoda's name, Grogu, so that's a big highlight. The final fight with, I think the character's name is Morgan Elsbeth, who that character was later in the Ahsoka series, the antagonist for the Ahsoka character.
She was even in, I think it was Tales of the Empire she was in.
Okay, and she was on the Ahsoka series as well. And I really like that fight. They make the reveal that Grand Admiral Thrawn is still out there, and that was of course set the stage for the Ahsoka series, which I love as well. This is I think, even though season 1 I think is my favorite season of The Mandalorian, the Ahsoka episode is my favorite episode of the show to date, mainly because of all the Ahsoka stuff.
But before I reveal my number 1, Jason said, yeah, it's a great show for the Star Wars fans, yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job with all 3 of those characters in this season.
Yeah. But yeah, my favorite episode of the Mandalorian season 2. It's still my favorite Mandalorian episode altogether. That's chapter 16, The Rescue. Even though they undid the ending with the Book of Boba Fett, I don't let that ruin the episode to me. I think it's a perfect chapter of The Mandalorian. It's awesome seeing Luke Skywalker in his prime, in his peak. Yeah, it's fantastic action. It's got a very emotional ending to the chapter, and everyone's got their time to shine in it. Yeah, I think it's a perfect episode of Mandalorian. It's got everything you want in a Mandalorian episode, plus more, I would say. Yeah, that's my number 1. It's The Rescue.
All right.
We ranked the episodes of The Mandalorian season 2. I'm not sure if we'll do this for season 3 because I've already reviewed it myself, and I wasn't as praised with the season 3 as the other season, so
yeah,
I'm not sure if we'll do that one.
Yeah, I would say season 3 is a big step down from seasons 1 and 2. I don't hate it. There's still some highlights in it, but there's a lot of fumbles in that season as well. I think the final 2 episodes were probably the best in season 3.
Yeah.
But I can tell you the worst episode easily.
Is it the one with Jack Black in?
The one that has Jack Black and
Yeah.
Lizzo. That episode is awful.
And Christopher Lloyd.
I didn't mind Christopher Lloyd, but Jack Black was out of place, and Lizzo's not an actress. So.
Yeah. I didn't think Christopher Lloyd was in it enough. He was only in it for a few moments. But yeah, that's definitely my least favorite Mandalorian chapter.
Yeah. And then I got annoyed in that same episode. They try to resolve the whole Darksaber conflict. It's like Din Djarin has it, but Bo-Katan wants it. And like I was expecting like a big fight between them. And it's like they resolve it due to a loophole, and I'm like, oh, that was a cop out.
And that appears in the same chapter. It all appears in that one.
Yeah, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, Jason agrees as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Mandalorian season 2 is still an excellent season of Mandalorian, but I do prefer season 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if season 3 was on par with the other 2 seasons, it'd still be in my top 3 live action Star Wars shows, because I think now I would say I like Obi-Wan over this. The Ahsoka series is really good. And I just watched Andor for the first time, and it's now my favorite Star Wars show. That's an amazing show.
Just get the drink.
All right.
But yeah, we ran through the episodes of Mandalorian season 2. For season 1 as well. If you've not seen that live stream, you can go ahead and find that on my channel. But I appreciate you joining on all my live streams again, Jacob. Or as I should say, Jedi Master Jacob.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, as always.
Yeah, I think next time we'll be just discussing probably Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it. It's been a while since I've seen it all the way through. I think I've only watched it all the way through once. And that was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow. And that movie is 60 years old.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 2 main stars in it are still alive.
Do you have any final words for this live stream?
It was fun. I enjoyed talking about Star Wars, and may the Force be with you.
Yeah, this is the way. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, ciao. May the